What if everything you know about human origins is incomplete? Not wrong, just unfinished. Because for most of history, humans were ordinary. We hunted, we gathered, we survived. Then something happened. Not slowly, not gradually, but suddenly. In a very short window of time, humans changed. Our brains exploded in complexity. Language appeared almost fully formed. Art, symbols, music, mathematics, belief systems, all at once. This is not how normal evolution works. Evolution is patient. It moves in tiny steps, over hundreds of thousands of years. But the human mind didn't grow like that. It jumped. And jumps always raise one question. What caused it? If we rewind the timeline, we see something disturbing. For nearly 2 million years, human ancestors barely changed. Same tools, same behaviors, same limits. Then around 70,000 years ago, a switch flipped. Anthropologists call it the cognitive revolution. But naming something doesn't explain it. It only hides the mystery behind a label. Because revolutions don't happen without pressure, or intervention, or both. The human brain didn't just get bigger. It got different. Neurons began forming dense, complex networks. Abstract thought emerged. Humans began imagining things that did not exist. Gods, stories, nations, the future. No other species does this. Not even close. So the real question is not, how did humans evolve? The real question is, why did humans evolve this way, and why so fast? Let's talk about genetics. Inside your DNA are genes that control language, imagination, and cognition. One of them is called FOXP2. Without it, complex speech is impossible. Thought becomes fragmented. Communication collapses. Here's the strange part. This gene appears in humans almost fully formed. Not half-built, not experimental, functional, as if it was installed. Neanderthals had a version of it, but not the same, not complete. They disappeared. We didn't. Coincidence? Or selection? Then there are genes scientists still can't trace. Hundreds of them. They don't match known evolutionary paths. They don't resemble genes in other species. They simply appear. Geneticists call them genes of unknown origin. That's a polite way of saying, we don't know where they came from. And when science doesn't know, stays quiet. But silence doesn't mean answers don't exist. Now think about the brain itself. The human brain consumes roughly 20% of the body's energy. That's insane from an evolutionary perspective. Nature hates inefficiency. Anything that wastes energy usually gets eliminated. Yet the most energy-hungry organ in our body was preserved, protected, graded. Why would evolution keep something so expensive? Unless it was necessary or intentional. And then there's childbirth. Human babies are born helpless. More helpless than almost any other mammal. They can't walk. They can't feed themselves. They can barely survive. From an evolutionary standpoint, that's a terrible design. But their brains are unfinished, soft, flexible, rewritable, as if they are meant to be shaped after birth, programmed by experience, almost like hardware waiting for software. Now let's step outside biology for a moment. Every ancient civilization tells a similar story. Beings came from the sky, or from the sea, or from beyond the world. They created humans, or altered them, or taught them knowledge they didn't earn. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki. The Egyptians called them the Neteru. In India, they were the Devis. In Mesoamerica, the feathered serpent. Different names, same role. Teachers, engineers, watchers. Civilizations separated by oceans and thousands of years, telling the same story. That's not normal. Either everyone imagined the same lie, or everyone remembered the same truth. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. When we hear manipulated humans, we think of aliens, spaceships, science fiction. But manipulation doesn't require spaceships. It requires knowledge, a previous advanced civilization, a forgotten branch of humanity, survivors of a reset. If Earth has been reset before, then knowledge could survive. Hidden, fragmented, passed on. Maybe humans weren't created from scratch. Maybe we were upgraded, adjusted, optimized, given a mind capable of questioning reality itself. And that creates a final, terrifying thought. What if the human brain is not finished? What if what we call human potential is only a fraction of what we were designed for? What if the reason we feel something is missing is because something was never fully unlocked? And what if the real manipulation is not what happened in the past, but what is still happening now? If humans were altered, the next question is obvious. Who did it, and why? To answer that, we have to look at what history doesn't like to talk about: lost time. Because the official story says civilization is about 6,000 years old. Before that, primitive humans, caves, sticks, fire. But the evidence doesn't agree. All around the world, there are structures that should not exist. At least not at the time they were built. Massive stone blocks, precision cuts, astronomical alignment, built without steel, without machines, without electricity. According to the timeline, this should be impossible. Yet it exists. Göbekli Tepe is older than agriculture, older than cities, older than writing. It was built by people who were supposedly hunter-gatherers. That makes no sense. You don't build temples before you build villages, unless knowledge already existed. And then there are the floods. Almost every ancient culture speaks of a great flood. Not metaphorical, not symbolic. A real world-altering event. Sumer, Egypt, India, China, Mesoamerica, different continents. Same story. Civilization destroyed. Knowledge lost. A few survivors. Science admits massive floods happened. Rapid climate shifts. Melting ice. Rising oceans. But here's what they don't emphasize. Sea levels didn't rise slowly. They jumped. In geological terms, that's a reset. Entire coastlines vanished. Cities drowned. History erased. What survives a reset? Not populations, not empires. Information, encoded in myths, hidden in symbols, passed through stories. This is where it connects. If Earth has been reset before, then civilization could be much older than we think. Advanced, technological, capable of genetic knowledge. And when it fell, only fragments remained. Those fragments didn't rebuild the world immediately. They guided it, shaped it, influenced early humans. Not as gods, but as teachers, engineers, keepers of forbidden knowledge. Knowledge. This explains something strange. Why ancient people knew astronomy. Why they mapped the stars with accuracy. Why pyramids align with constellations. Why time was tracked with extreme precision. These are not survival skills. They are inherited knowledge. And inherited knowledge always comes from somewhere. Now let's talk about something darker. Control. If humans were modified, it wasn't just to survive. It was to think, but not too much, because the human brain is powerful, yet limited. We perceive only a fraction of reality, a narrow band of light, a narrow range of sound. We forget easily. We are distracted easily. We fight each other constantly. It's almost as if intelligence was given with restrictions. Enough to build, not enough to remember, enough to question. Not enough to see the whole picture. Think about this. Human consciousness is capable of incredible insight, but only briefly. Moments of genius, moments of awakening, then it fades. Why? Because a fully unlocked mind might remember things it shouldn't, might ask questions that destabilize systems, might reject control. Every civilization rises, then collapses. Same patterns, same mistakes, same endings, as if history is looping. Reset after reset. And humans never quite remember the previous cycle. What if that's intentional? What if resets are not accidents, but corrections? When civilization advances too far, when knowledge becomes dangerous, when control is threatened, the system wipes the board. Flood, fire, impact, start again. And each time, humans return, smarter, but not free. This leads to the most disturbing possibility. Humans are not the first intelligent species on Earth. We are not the final version either. We are iteration, a controlled upgrade, allowed to advance, only within boundaries. And the biggest lie we were taught is that we are at the top. Because if you believe you are the final form, you stop looking for the truth. But if humans were designed to ask questions, then eventually, we were meant to ask this one. What happens when the reset fails? And what happens when humans finally remember? If all of this is true, then the most important question is not about the past. It's about now. Because whatever altered humans did not disappear. Systems don't abandon experiments. They monitor them, and humans show clear signs of being monitored. We advance in bursts, then we stall, then we collapse. Over and over, technology accelerates, then something pulls the brakes. Wars, pandemics, economic crashes, information overload. There's never one thing. There's always a cascade. Enough to slow us down, not enough to wipe us out. Correction, not destruction. Now look at human behavior. We are curious by nature, but we fear the unknown. We crave truth, but reject it when it threatens our identity. We build systems, then obey them. Money, time, borders, beliefs, invisible structures that feel real, but exist only because we agree they do. This is not natural intelligence. This is conditioned intelligence. And conditioning only works if the subject forgets its true capacity. Think about altered states of consciousness, meditation, near-death experiences, psychedelics, deep trauma, extreme focus. Across cultures, people report the same thing. A feeling of remembering, not learning, remembering, as if something ancient wakes up, briefly, then fades again. Why would the brain be capable of that if it was never meant to access it? Unless the limitation is artificial. Unless consciousness itself is being throttled. Now imagine this. What if human consciousness is a spectrum, and we are locked at the lower end? What if ancient humans accessed more of it, and that's why their knowledge looks impossible? And what if every reset was designed to push humans back into amnesia? Because a species that remembers its origin cannot be controlled. This explains something chilling. Why history feels fragmented. Why ancient knowledge appears, disappears, then reappears. Why we keep rediscovering the same truths. Nothing is new. It's all being remembered again. Slowly, carefully, because remembering too fast might trigger another reset. Now here is the final thought, the one that changes everything. What if humans were never meant to be slaves? What if we were meant to be partners, observers, custodians, and something went wrong? What if control replaced cooperation? And what if the system that limits us is not external anymore, but internal? Fear, distraction, division. The perfect prison is the one you don't realize you're in, and the perfect reset is the one you call history. So ask yourself this: why does it feel like humanity is on the edge of something? Why does the world feel unstable? Why does it feel like time itself is accelerating? Because systems destabilize right before transformation or collapse. And this time, the reset might not be geological. It might be cognitive. Not a flood, not fire, not ice, but awareness. A moment when enough humans start asking the wrong questions, the dangerous questions, the kind of questions that wake something up. Because maybe the real reason humans were altered was not to control us forever, but to see what would happen when we finally remember who we are. And if that moment comes, there will be no reset powerful enough to stop it.